Good morning. It's another lovely Thursday. The day is beautiful, so I am deciding to project in my outdoor studio again, not at the cottage, back in the city. I'm trying this new format, so I'm really hoping that I'm not coming across sideways. What I'm trying to do is kind of more of a landscape portrait as opposed to portrait. Let me just see. Can somebody tell me if you can see me okay or if I'm sideways? That would be super helpful. Oh, Lisa sent in a request, so she's Lisa. Can you just let me know if I look sideways or not? You are sideways. Damn it. Okay, hang on a sec. I was reading and they said that Instagram is now doing it so that you're not sideways, but I must have had to set something new. Anyway, sorry about that. Another screw up in the world of Kate Taylor's digital. Anyway, I just wanted to say welcome so much to coming and joining me again for Thank You to Talking to Artists. This is actually my 11th session, so that's kind of incredible. I never really thought when I started this that it would become something I would do regularly, but I'm really enjoying it, and I'm really enjoying going through and reaching out to artists that I have admired from afar or seen done shows with or just watched on Instagram that I've never really had the opportunity to talk to. So this has been really great. So the goal for talking to artists really is selfishly gives me the opportunity to talk to some really cool people and learn a lot. But it's also for artists to be able to share their inspiration, some of their tips and tricks, and some of the background of the business of art and how artists actually get the work out there into the public and how they kind of share that joy and hopefully make a living at it too. And it's also designed for collectors who can kind of understand a little bit more about the world of art and how things happen beyond just being able to see this beautiful piece that people produce. It's some of the inspiration and the work that goes behind it, which I think is helpful. So I am just going to invite Lisa. I'm super excited. All right. To talk to Lisa. As many of you probably know, Lisa and I've known Lisa for over 10 years. We first met at the Riverdale Art Walk. Hey, how are you?
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. So I was trying to do us sideways. We'll have to figure that out next time.
I could have joined you sideways.
Well, I did a whole episode upside down once. Actually, that wasn't so cool. So I'm just going to do a bit of an introduction about you and about us. So Lisa, I met Lisa first time, I guess, in 2009 at the Riverdale Art Walk. She doesn't remember me because I was a youth artist. She really had her shit together. She had lots of people around. She was selling stuff. And I'm like, wow, I love her work, but she's a cool person. I want to know. And we are now part of two abstract art collectives, Solid Color with Karen Taylor and Color Shift with Sansa Lamb, Mike Smalley, and Karen Taylor as well. And those collectives we started to be able to start to do other shows. So I think we could probably talk a little bit about the benefit of that. And I'm going to have Karen Taylor on later just to kind of help her. Because she really was kind of the owner of those original concepts. So anyway, and also Lisa and I share a studio together, so that's been super fun too.
Absolutely. And I need to just clear something up here. 2009, maybe I looked like I had everything together, but I think that was my absolute very first show ever.
Really?
Riverdale Art Walk. I remember moving to Toronto from Vancouver, and I was just wandering Leslieville and saw this art show, and I thought, one day I'd like to be a part of that. And then the next year, I had applied and I got in. So it was my first show ever. It was so exciting. So I think what you were seeing was probably more nerves than confidence.
Well, you know what? I do remember, and now I'm very familiar with the Hickey clan that comes in en masse to support every single show you do. So, and it was my first show as well. And it's funny because I remember being totally overwhelmed, and it was absolutely a case of fake it till you make it, right? It's like, yeah, totally. I'm a professional artist. I'm comfortable with my work. I can talk about it.
Exactly. And you're right. I do have the most supportive community around me of friends and family who come in from Hamilton, Caledonia, all over the place, every show. The only problem is if they have the same last name as me, when they make these comments online, everyone can tell them. So.
Well, at least one of them is like Hick, so maybe it's just like, oh, I don't know, maybe it's not Hick, maybe it is. Yeah,
we got to get our act together. It's been over a decade. Come on.
Well, that's the advantage of being a Taylor, right? It could be anybody. Although everyone thinks we're sisters, right? Like with Karen Taylor and I, people are like, are you guys sisters? I'm like, she has a Scottish accent. No, we're not sisters. We're close friends. So that's weird.
Two Taylors and a Hickey.
Yeah. So anyway, you're obviously at Art Alchemy now, so maybe you can talk to us a little bit about what you're working on, what you're inspired by.
Yeah, sure. I'll apologize for the shaky camera work. I'm doing my own camera work today. So I'm just kind
You need a
of,
tripod.
yeah, I know. I'm in the middle of my little creative zone here, my studio. So I'll flip the camera around. I've got lots of, wherever you see red, that's a canvas that's been primed and ready to start working on. And then I've got some finished things on the wall, some in progress.
Oh, that's cool.
Bit of a mix. I work in acrylic and oil, sometimes together, sometimes separately. And this big guy down here is a big commission in progress.
Oh,
So
lovely.
very, very early days. So yeah, this will change a lot as the days go on. But that's what I'll be diving into as soon as we're finished here. Got my
Yeah.
palette, beautiful view of the CN Tower when you can see it down there. I think you can see it.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, just all the junk and stuff that comes with your studio.
And turn around so they can see where my studio is in relationship to that. Because it's
So,
been really great being in the studios together, obviously practicing all of our COVID distancing and stuff.
so
But being able
generally
to
I'll
kind of,
paint here and then, painting, and then there's Kate over there. You can
yeah.
I'll do a quick little tour, Kate.
Okay.
Just a quick one. This is so just across the hall here, and here's Kate's studio.
Yeah.
So it's actually quite awesome walking in, and there's some of Karen's work.
Yeah, her new stuff's really cool too.
So it's quite awesome walking in the morning. This is my first time. I shouldn't say first time. My first time ever sharing a studio was last year, 2 years ago, with the amazing mural artist Monica Wickler. And
Oh, wow.
we shared a space. And that was my first experience with walking into another studio and seeing someone else's work, not really knowing how it's going to affect you, and then seeing it come out in your paintings. And
Yeah.
it was incredible how Monica's, even though we didn't work in the space together, she's street artist, so she's got racks and racks and racks of beautiful, vibrant spray paint. And so I just had all this beautiful palette of spray paint that I looked at all the time. And her colors came out in my artwork, and it was just awesome to see the impact. And I'm finding that here.
Yeah, me too. And I love that. Like, I love to see, I think it's really cool to see how pieces work. Like, your own process, and where it goes from beginning to end, and how it goes through that awkward teenage stage in the middle sometimes. But it's really cool. It's really cool to see other people's processes and how that also happens, which I think is really exciting. And
I was just going to say, being in this space with you guys has made me realize how much sitting and looking I do, which at first I was kind of self-conscious about, because I'll just sort of be sitting in here, I'll show you. This is my new favorite studio chair here. So I'll just be sitting in my old chair, and I almost want to wear a t-shirt that says, I'm actually working.
yeah. Well, I just posted something like that a couple of days ago, because I was working on that big 48 by 60, right? And I'm like, I'm getting so close, I don't want to kind of ruin it. So you do need to spend a lot of time sitting and thinking about it, right?
Yeah, taking it all.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I agree.
Yeah.
The other thing I really love, one of the reasons that I started Art Alchemy is because I was really missing that energy of other artists around. And artists that you could have a long conversation about the benefits of green gold, that you cannot have with anybody else because nobody else cares, right? So it's like, is it Liquitex? Do you use golden? Do you use tri-art? And I think that was lovely.
Oh,
that whole.
When I started out, I had no idea where to ask those questions, right? I ended up putting out a call on Facebook, and an artist out in Vancouver, I was in Toronto, answered, and I got to ask questions like, what do I paint on? Is it okay to paint on a canvas you buy at an art store? Is that what professional artists do? You just have no idea. So it's amazing being in a space with other people where you can just bounce things off of one another, including, does this look finished? Should I stop? Am I going to ruin it if I keep going?
Yeah, well, I think that's critical. It's one of the things I think is really, I don't know, people who know me know this is my rant that I do all the time, but I think it's really unfortunate. You go to art school and you pay money to be in art school and you learn how to be an artist, but they teach you nothing about stuff like that. Like, really, to come out of art school and not be confident about what kind of materials professional artists use or how to promote your business is atrocious, right?
Oh,
hence this video series, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we've talked about it, I've often thought, I wonder if I could draft up a curriculum that's just like how to get started in actually trying to make a living as an artist. Not
Yeah.
that not that I'm a pro, but there are such simple things like you said, you just don't learn, right up into including doing your taxes as an artist, as a self-employed
Yeah.
person.
What can you write off? What can you not write off? Actually, that would be a good person to have on here, an accountant for artists.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Because my goal on this too is obviously it's to talk to artists that I really love and admire, but it's also to provide a bit more of the business context, which, the Artist Network does to a certain degree, which I think is a super valuable resource for all artists. I believe all artists should be members of the Artist Network. I'm biased, though I'm the chair.
Well, Work's the first
But
place that I did join, and March, I believe she was
March Gregoroff, I think, was the chair.
the chair, yeah, at the time.
Mm-hmm.
It was amazing. She invited me to her front porch and, basically walked me through everything I needed to know to get started. And I wouldn't be here if it weren't for that guidance.
Yeah. I feel like that with Christopher Hayes. He's unfortunately passed away now, but I went to a town hall meeting. I just joined, went to a town hall meeting and didn't know anybody. He really kind of took me under his wing, and he's just like, well, this is what you want to do. These are the shows you need to do, and this is how you get to contact them, and this is how you do your portfolio. And I'm like, holy shit. Like, that's so amazing and so helpful.
That's what this community's like. And Karen Taylor, she basically got me. I had no confidence to join the group, and she asked me to join, the.
Oh, Solid Color. Yeah.
I was like, no, I basically said no. And she was like, no, you'll join. And it's okay.
Yeah. And we'll have fun.
And then she's been there since the beginning to answer questions and talk me up and stuff like that. The community is pretty awesome around Toronto, I'd say. Or, I don't know, Ontario, what is it?
Yeah, I would say probably Ontario. Like, I know I probably get emails or calls from artists actually across the country, probably almost weekly, from people. I don't know how they find me, but on everything from like doing work stuff internationally or shipping work or whatever. And I think that it's nice that the community can to do that. And I think within the Artist Network, there's the internal member page, which a lot of those things are due to, and especially during COVID. It's kind of like, where are you getting your supplies from now? Like, what's going on, and how do you get your panels made, and what's the timing like? And I think that all that stuff, which is the nitty gritty of actually being able to create, is critically important.
Yeah, absolutely. Or how about this one? I've run out of white paint. Can anyone loan me some?
Yeah. I know.
It's real, people.
Yeah, exactly. I know, and that's certainly challenging. I want to go back to a little bit of art alchemy, because I know that one of the things that, so it's based on obviously my sister's art alchemy in Comox, Courtney Comox. But one of our policies too is that not to comment on people's work unless asked, right? Which I have a hard time with that, because I'm a talker, so I'm always vocal, right? But I think that that's also another important part of it. It's important to have the resources there when you really are kind of stuck and you need a fresh set of eyes on something. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, it can be a detriment if you're in the middle of a vision and stuff, and then someone comes in and comments something halfway through, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's never easy to get, not harsh criticism. It's never easy to make something and then hear someone say, you're not quite there yet. But when you're ready to ask for that criticism, it's so invaluable,
Yeah, and it's also hard to get that from other people. Like, I find that when your family's like, oh, it's beautiful. It's like, that's not what I need. I need constructive criticism. Like, this part's working, this composition looks awkward, maybe a little more green gold over here, like specific, right? That can actually help you move forward. And you can choose to accept it or not. But I find that that's the other valuable thing, is actually getting feedback from people who only have your good intentions at heart. I mean, they're not trying to sabotage you, but they're able to sort of hone in on something you can't always see.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the policy of not commenting is easier with constructive criticism. Sometimes it's hard not to walk in and go, wow.
That's true, yeah. I know. That's where I have a hard time.
I mean, that's always welcome.
So the other thing about art alchemy for you is that I want to talk a little bit about kind of like pivoting within COVID and stuff, because everybody has had to do that. But I think for you, it's kind of forced you to be a full-time artist. Like, you were always working full-time in terms of the hours, but now being able to really dedicate your time just to art, right?
I mean, it's been, I'd say, the scariest / most productive couple of months. Gosh, almost going on 6 months now, really, right?
I know, yeah, crazy, huh?
Unbelievable, yeah. So I've always kept one foot in working in and around hospitals. And luckily, in the last several years, that's been in the form of an artist. So I've worked for, it's called the
University Health Network,
yeah,
is it?
University Health Network, specifically the Bito Wellness Academy, as an artist working with folks with dementia and Alzheimer's. And that's, I love that work. It's incredible work. And of course, when all of this started happening, those programs had to be shut down, and they haven't started up again. All of that was terrifying, along with having all of our shows canceled, all of our galleries closed.
I know. Someone's pissed off, I guess.
Live from the middle of the road.
Yeah.
So it was so scary, but having this space to come to, we were able to work it out sort of scheduling wise, to be able to be here alone and still use our studio space has been so amazing.
Yeah.
I've had somewhere to come almost every day at some point in the day or night to make art, to get away from the apartment, you know, in those four walls, and to come to this space has been unbelievable, and to dive in full time, which is something I've always wanted to do, but is so hard to do. As you know, making a living as an artist, especially in Toronto, is just such a daunting, challenging prospect.
Well, especially at the same time when all of your usual vehicles of selling are kind of being cut off at the knees, right? Like,
and I know it's been so immobilizing for so many folks. You know, I know a lot of artists who just haven't been able to create. It's just been too scary. And for whatever reason, my little creative engine kicked into, you know, fight or flight mode, I think. And I just dove right in, and I've been so productive and creative and inspired. And I'm so grateful for that. I'm so grateful because I can completely empathize with the I'm frozen. I can't create right now. And that's a powerless place to be. So I'm grateful. I've been productive. I feel like I've taken a few really big creative leaps. My work.
And the work is beautiful. Like, it just glows. Like, it's so happy, and I think that's exactly what people need right now.
It's there's something to.
Is that really loud? Can you hear it? All that construction?
It's crazy. It sounds like giant robots are going to get you. You're just going to.
Well, if I go missing, you'll know where I am.
I'll send help.
Okay.
So yeah, I think it's a huge privilege to be able to come into the studio every day and dive into the same work has just propelled me in a way that I am so grateful for, because previously for me, I'd work for, 8 or 9 hours, and then I wasn't able to get back to the studio for 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
And restarting and getting back into it was this torturous kind of like procrastinating, sweeping, washing thing.
I prefer to call them rituals.
Oh yeah, my ritual. God, my rituals before actually picking up a paintbrush were taking it more than the actual painting. So being able to every day, I am able to just dive in seamlessly, and it's awesome. It feels so good.
Well, I don't know about you, but I can't paint for 8 hours. So if I do a day like that, which occasionally you do when you're like up against a tight deadline, I'm just exhausted the next day, like mentally and physically. So it's nice to be able to, like I find with this, especially when, we all have a WhatsApp channel, so we all know who's going to be in and who's not. You can pop in for a few hours and then go out again, right? And just really feel like your time there is really productive.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I've discovered lately that I work in spurts, so I'll get so much work done in an hour and a half, and then everything around that is, this fun stuff like peeling and scraping palettes and
doing edges.
Doing all the edges, exactly. All of the sort of more monotonous stuff that just has to get done every day. I'm almost grateful for it because it gives you that mental break. You don't have to be creative.
Yeah, but the reality is it's all stuff that needs to be done, right? So
yeah, totally.
So that part of it's good. Yeah, I think the other thing too is originally, when I kind of conceived of the studio, I was going to put in Wi-Fi, so you could potentially go online and look for inspirations and stuff, which I never do anyway. So I don't know why I thought I would want to do that, but ultimately I decided not to, and I'm so glad, because for me, the draw is always, well, I have to do the business work first and the computer work first before I can allow myself the pleasure of being in the studio.
Yeah.
And not having that option really in the studio has been so
Oh,
freeing. Once
oh,
I'm there, I can focus on the work.
I'm so glad there's no Wi-Fi here because you pick up your phone to call someone and next thing you know, you're online
Yeah,
for an hour. So
yeah, exactly.
grateful. Let's never get Wi-Fi here. It's
No.
despite your best intentions, you end up doing other things. So yeah, this has definitely become just a creative zone, which is so nice.
Yeah. So now that all the shows and stuff have been kind of postponed, how are you going about your business of art, or how are you getting new business or contracting people or?
That's a great question. I don't have a single answer. I think for me right now, I'm hearing from folks who have come to shows over the years. I've even heard from folks who maybe met me 5 years ago at a Riverdale Art Walk or, Toronto Outdoor Art or whatever show I may have done. One of a kind. I started One of a Kind 2 years ago.
Hmm.
And I've had so many people reach out and say, for the first time ever, we're not traveling. I have a minute. I have a blank wall. We've been wanting, a painting. Um, so it's been previous shows that are really starting to show up now. People from previous shows. I think people have a break right now in a way. Some people,
Yeah.
where they're not traveling, they're not hectic. Even certain frontline workers, there are some nurses who have reached out who usually they're incredibly busy, at their normal job, but then they go on vacation in the summer and then they're just back. And right
Yeah.
now, they might have a break where they're staying at home and they want to beautify their home. So I'm grateful for all the previous shows because people are showing up out of the woodwork, out of the blue, folks that maybe I haven't even seen for 6 or 7 years
Yeah.
who
Well, and I
are,
think it's also, they've sort of done a lot of studies where kind of the whole creative process really helps people process grief and stress and anxiety and stuff. And we're seeing that with a lot of the YouTube videos. But I think there's also something about working with an artist to produce a commission where you kind of feel there's a bit of creative collaboration. It's
oh,
probably really good for the soul for people too.
yeah, I hadn't heard about that, but that resonates with what's happening. I have way more commission requests right now than I've ever had before.
Hmm.
And you're right, it's folks who want to really collaborate with me. It's not just I'd like this size. It's much more of a back and forth.
Yeah.
I've got to admit that has always terrified me. Um, it's it's just such a different process working with another person's um, creative vision. So it's always been really scary for me. But throughout the last 6 months, there's been some amazing folks who've stepped forward and wanted to work together. And they don't see it as working together. They see it as like, I'm going to ask you to do this thing, but they've got these beautiful ideas.
Yeah.
And it's been awesome for me. I have been pushed by some of these folks so far out of my comfort zone in terms of color, in terms of size. And the results have been really exciting.
Yeah, I think that's the case. I think that makes it really fun, right? I mean, to
Yeah.
be able to kind of go back and forth. And I
Well,
always find that the interesting thing, though, is to try and figure out, because most people aren't used to talking artist language or artist talk, right? So you have to have this translation between what are you telling me and what do I think that you're actually saying, so I can actually execute that into a piece that you're going to love.
oh yeah, yeah. And you say fun, I say terrifying.
Well, because I've been doing a lot of commissions for the last 7 or 8 years now, so I'm more
I,
comfortable with it now.
I liken it. Well, I mean, honestly, every time I stand in front of a blank canvas, it feels like standing on the edge of a cliff for me. It does. Like I've never, and I think that's why I love it because it gives me this feeling almost like a jittery. Okay, I'm gonna cliff dive into
Yeah.
this lake. It never feels comfortable. It never feels repetitive or mundane. It always feels terrifying and like the most exciting paintings like this one for me right now is at that really exciting part where I'm gonna get the jitters when I start to work on it, and I'm gonna have to make myself stay in front of it because I'll jump up, I'll walk away. I've learned it helps to do like jumping jacks or something that doesn't get me out and try
Yeah.
to stay focused. And commissions almost do that double time for me.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm learning to try to harness that and enjoy it, but it's still very scary.
Well, and I think I want to go back to something else that you were saying too, is that because I'm finding I'm also doing quite a few commissions, and a lot of them are people who same thing have been following me for years.
Right.
And I think it's the real importance of doing those shows, like people that kind of say, oh, well, I did our Walk in the Square once and I only sold one piece, so it's not worthwhile. And it's like, but the real value is not actually what you sell at that point in time. It's the relationships you build and the database you build and the communications you have for years.
Oh,
So that
yeah.
when people are ready, you're in their, you're kind of top of mind, right? And I think a lot of artists forget that piece of it.
Oh, it's so true. I had one woman approach me and she said that she'd had one of my paintings from one of the shows, and it was 6 years ago, as her screensaver for 6 years. And that was, to remind her. And they'd been saving, and they were finally ready to take the leap. So yeah, you never know. I can't speak for other artists, but I have certainly had shows where nothing sells.
Yeah.
And it's really hard not to let that bring you down and make you question everything. If I ever have a show like that, I will spend the next couple of weeks just feeling like, what am I doing?
Oh, it's funny because I then leave my tent to go and talk to all my friends, which is also not really helpful.
Yeah, and then any potential sales that would have walked by. This is
Yes,
fine.
I know. I didn't say it was smart. So I'm just trying to move my camera because of the sun.
It's such a spiral. So it's not, oh man, if anyone is watching who is considering it, it's not, wow, it's not glamorous, is it? We lug a lot of things around up and down stairs. We pack cars.
Lots of schlepping. Yeah.
Put up lots of tents. We are hammering and puttying a lot. And
it's a very physical job. I think people don't recognize. I just wanted to share one other commission. Just we were talking about longevity. I do a show, the North Toronto Group of Artists show, which is a really small show, like 21 artists. And I had this woman come to me last year, and she's like, okay, so I've been saving for 3 years. I put a down payment on my condo. I got the keys on the condo on Wednesday. Now it's Friday. I'm ready for my commission. Right?
Oh, that's amazing.
And she was the woman that we worked together, and she came in the studio and she loved your work too. So she actually bought some of your pieces as well, which was another major benefit about sharing studio space, right?
Gosh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's so cool. That's so cool. And yeah, right now we don't get to bring clients in here. It's not the bustling space it used to be.
That's right.
Hopefully
that was in the olden days.
Yeah, in the olden days, it's so amazing to be able to bring people into a space and say, check out this artist, and I'm sure you've seen this artist, and folks generally enjoy it as well, right? To be able to just take it all in.
Well, isn't it a little bit behind, like peering behind the curtain, right? Like, because normally people see artists when they're presenting their final pieces, right? And they don't see kind of the work in progress behind the scenes. And how much of us love those, how stuff works or how things are made? And it's the same sort of thing with bringing someone into a studio.
So I think this COVID-19 lockdown time has been amazing for all of the arts in terms of folks bringing their cell phones in and making time-lapse videos, making behind the scenes videos, everything, right? Theater, musicians. We're getting to see all my favorite musicians. I'm getting to see them play concerts in their living room. It's so cool.
Yeah. And I'm so nosy too. One of the things I love about that is like, what do you have on your bookcase? What kind of art do you have on your walls? It's so interesting to see how they really live.
Hey, that's a cool podcast. Yeah, what's on your bookshelf? I like that. What's on your record player? What's in your tape deck?
Ooh.
Anyone have?
That would be dating us a little bit, I think. Where's your 8-track, girl?
Listen, everything old is new again.
Yeah. So what do you have? What do you have coming up then?
What do I have coming up? I am applying for online shows. I've been hesitant to do online shows. I haven't done many. And I'm going to dive in and do it. I'm going to apply for Art Walk in the Square today. It's the deadline if anyone else wants to apply.
That's right, remember?
Yeah.
And it is juried, so people know.
Yeah, juried. You can apply today. I'm assuming till midnight. I'll be submitting mine at 11:59.
Best not to, because we've had challenges with their website. It's not that reliable.
Okay, I'm going. As soon as I'm apply. I've been really hesitant to do the online show thing just because I'm not an online person. I I don't love scrolling around online, but what I'm realizing is people are stuck at home and they need
Yeah.
to scroll online. So in this case, it's not a bad thing. It's a positive thing. It's a window into another world for folks. So I'm going to dive into that. I'm going to take that on.
Well, and I think the reality too is it's going to become, it's been sort of, people have been gravitating towards online shopping for a long time. And I think artists have been pretty reluctant to actually join that sort of wave. And I don't know if it's because there's a fear of technology from an artist's point of view, because our work is so very tactile, or whether or not it's a little bit of a conflict between being a true artist and being sort of inspired and then also selling out by selling your work. Like, I think there's a weird mental thing that happens, I think, with a lot of artists.
Yeah. And I mean, even just time, you know, like it takes a lot of time to set up online stores. It takes a whole other, I mean, things are getting easier, but it takes a whole other set of brain cells to be able to tackle the digital stuff. So it's daunting.
Well, and the level of organization too, right? Like, because especially if you're on a couple of overlapping online stores, you want to make sure you don't have duplicate work that you accidentally sell twice, but you only have one piece, you know, like all that stuff.
I mean, perfect example. I was working on a commission that I just wrapped up last week. And of course, it came in at the beginning of all this, so a few months ago, and I've been working on it and sending videos, doing things like this with the collector, videos so they see what's going on, step by step, lots of feedback, lots of interaction. And she came down from Waterloo to pick up the painting. And when she saw it in real life, her first thing that she said was, "Oh my God, it's so different in real life. And I like it so much more in real life." And
good. That would be horrible.
That's always the thing for me, is that online is such an incredible tool, but it's so different in real life. So it's almost like I want to embrace the online tool. We have to embrace that. But I mean, nothing beats standing in front of a piece and seeing it in daylight. And
oh, absolutely. Plus, I think people also, they want to know the artist. I mean, you're going to an outdoor show because you want to talk to the artist and you want to understand the inspiration. You want to have an emotional connection to the person who's created the work, right?
yeah.
So I find for me too, it's a huge challenge because my work really, no matter how well I photograph it, it doesn't really reproduce very well digitally. And invariably what happens is that people will maybe like the work, they'll come and see it in real life, and then they're always like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you can see the wood grain." I'm like, that's a huge part of the work, right? that you're missing because it's just, I can't photograph it well enough.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, the nice thing now, it's summer. We can meet up with people outside, you know, so if someone's close enough, it's nice to meet up outside and to just look at the texture, look at the colors, look at the wood grain.
Yeah.
Really get the tactile experience. But then again, there's a whole bunch of people out there, collectors, who are very comfortable just buying online, sight unseen. And that's, I mean, it just depends on your comfort level, right?
Yeah, and I think the other thing that artists have to remember too is that, like, we had, I think we had a couple people from the Riverdale Art Walk online store who were actually in the US. So all of a sudden your reach expands exponentially beyond the people that are in the neighborhood that are coming to see you with an online store, right?
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, very true. I see there's a question that's come in. Should I read that?
Oh, sure, yeah, because I'm
Diana Wilkes, artist. Can you discuss the reveal with a commission or online sale? How do you handle that tense or exciting time? How do you?
I can talk a little bit to that because I actually work on, I have a zero risk commission policy. So, and I still am doing that. And so if people don't totally love the piece, they don't have to take it. And I'm really okay with that. And I'm finding that it's those micro expressions when you first look at it that you have to be really aware of. And I think that that's really where you start to kind of know, okay, I feel like you like it, but you don't quite love it yet, or else like, oh my God, they love it, right? It's usually if they love it, that's easy. If they're unsure, that's really where it's more difficult. And I delivered a commission to a woman, and we did the sidewalk. We were on the sidewalk exchanging this art, right? So she had on a hat and a mask and sunglasses, and I'm like, I have no clue. I have no clue. She loves it. She hates it. She's like, fuck, I just wasted all this money. It was so weird because that's so important.
Yeah, different times. I delivered a commission to Jeffrey. I'm sure it's okay that I say that. And it was right at the beginning of lockdown. We've been working together, doing this commission. And we made this plan that I was going to drive, and it was right downtown, sort of right in the core of downtown, to a high rise, and he was way
Oh,
up high.
right.
And it was so funny because it was right at the beginning, and we were also unsure of everything. So I had my mask on, and I turned on the street, a little side street, quiet side street we were supposed to meet on, and there was all these cops. So for the first time in my life, I had to text a collector and say, I don't think we can meet here. There's too many cops on the street. We might get
Might be caught fraternizing.
I know, because all the store at this point, all the stores were closed, everything had shut down, non-essential businesses were closed, and it just occurred to me, oh my God, maybe this is illegal.
Yeah. Well, and it's a weird thing. The other thing I found too is that I when the first lockdown happened, I had a lot of people go to I've got my little treasures are all online, my 6x6s, and so they actually are for sale online, and I had a number of people bought them from San Francisco and the UK and stuff like that, which was really cool. But same thing, you're doing these. I remember trying to figure out how to do this Skype call because I needed to see her color of her couch, which apparently was pink, and she wanted to make sure these pieces of art matched, and you're trying to do all that stuff, and then you finally ship it, and there's a little bit like, oh, I hope she loves it because it's gone now, right? Like you kind of, I would never want someone to have a piece they didn't love, but it's just so hard.
I mean, I think that's the biggest, I guess we haven't totally answered Diana's question. I think the biggest fear is always they're not going to love it. I mean, what I'm learning is that you can always usually get to that place where someone falls in love with it. It just usually takes a little bit more work, a little bit more communication. Something that I do, Diana, is that I generally work on 2 or 3. And so that might seem excessive. If someone orders, for example, a 24 by 48, I will work on 2 24 by 48s with that palette in mind. And what I generally see happening with myself, which is hilarious, is that on one of those, I'm really nervous and I'm thinking about what they want and I'm, holding my breath. And then on the other one, I go nuts and I'm creative and it's great. And so somewhere there's a bit of a balance happens and I get to be creative and I get to relax. And then they get to have a choice. I often do that as well. And I think that's one of the reasons actually that I offer a zero risk commission policy, because I don't feel, I've got a weird son, I don't feel like I have to be compelled. Like it's almost like I do the thinking, I listen to what they want, I put the colors on the palette that I think I'm going to use for their piece, but then I can just go crazy. And at the end of the day, I've had some too that have turned out completely differently from what they've asked for. And I send it to them, I'm like, don't feel you have to take it because it's different from what you asked for, but a lot of times it's captured the energy of what they're looking for. Yeah. So often they do like it and they do want to buy it, so. It you up. You don't feel like you're, connecting the dots or coloring in a coloring book. You feel like you're able to actually just relax.
Right. Plus the other thing too is at the end of the day, even if they don't take it, you have a piece that's strong and it's something you're happy with, right? Because I think that's the other part too. When I first did commissions, I was trying to work so hard at delivering what they said they wanted, which I've now learned isn't actually what they always want. But then I ended up with a piece that felt really tight. And I'm like, so that entirely was a pretty unpleasant experience. Let's make it a fun experience.
It's not even a creative experience, right? I think that's why I always had this distaste for commissions, because it feels, it just doesn't feel creative. So that's my way of being creative. I see Carolyn, what one do they usually choose? So Carolyn, I've never kept track, but what ends up happening for me is that they end up balancing out and I end up being able to relax with both of them. It's the very start that's hard for me. So in the end, they both end up being creative. They both end up being nice and loose. But in the beginning, there is definitely a tight one. There's definitely one that's more relaxed. They balance out. So
I find with the commissions I do as well, especially the ones that are in person, because they're way easier than kind of really remote ones, is that I involve them in the process really early on. So for me, the background and the wood grain is a really key part of it.
Yeah.
So we will often talk about colors, and I will actually often bring that to their space. I mean, well, pre-COVID, that's what I would do. It's a bit more difficult now, so that they could actually see it and have commentary on it. And then because of the way I do the palette knife, once the color's down, I can't pull it back. I take it to about 80%. So it's kind of like you can get the general idea of the shapes and the colors and the flow of it, but
Yeah.
it still allows them to have a little bit of feedback. And I usually go in there with some of my thoughts of what I think I'd like to do next.
Yeah.
I'm finding by that point in time, they're so invested in the piece and they feel like it's already theirs and they have ownership of it because they've been part of that creative process,
Yeah.
that it's very, very unusual. I think I've only actually had one case in like 8 years that it
Oh,
hasn't worked out.
yeah. Yeah. I do the same thing with commissions in terms of no obligation. I mean, I think probably the worst thing to imagine is someone having a painting in their house that they don't love. You know,
Well, and, yeah, and what a barrier to even starting a commission. Like if I was
yeah,
a customer, I'm like, yeah, I really like this person's work, but I like that piece. And this actually happened to me because I have a piece of David Greaves, which I love, and we saw a piece of the Toronto Outdoor, loved his work. It
yeah,
was already sold. So I said, well, can you make one? And so he, as artist to artist, I felt I was pretty able to articulate what I wanted, and he was able to understand it. But he brought 2 or 3 pieces over to the house, and the energy just wasn't the same. And I was starting to feel like such an idiot because I
thing.
loved that piece, but not these pieces the same way. And then the next year for Toronto Outdoor, he sent out a postcard, and the painting was about this big. It was tiny, right? And I called him up. I'm like, "Yep, that's it." He's
Oh my
like,
God.
It's a 5 foot painting. Are you sure?" I'm like, "I'm so sure."
Yeah, that was
Because
the feel.
yeah, and so that's why I kind of thought if I, as an artist, can't always articulate what I
Yeah,
like and what I don't like about something, how can I expect somebody who doesn't have that vocabulary to share that information?
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's the one type of commission. The other type, of course, is the you go for it. I trust you. I love your
Yeah,
work. This is the size I need, or something like that, right? And that's always
yeah,
fun to just have complete creative reign.
yeah.
But that can be equally as daunting because to have no parameters is that's sometimes equally as daunting. But
Well, it's daunting when you think that you kind of your intuition says, but they're looking for something specific. They don't
yeah,
want to say that because they don't want to hamper the creative process. But on the other hand, they have some sort of expectation. I think that's where it can be difficult, right?
it is sort of a bit of a head game. But I mean,
Yeah.
this. I mean, if I'm getting something creative out of this time, it's to just try to get out of your head with it. You know, um, I
I was listening to Art Juice, which is a great podcast. And one of the things they were talking about is exactly that, like when to get into your head and out of your head. And
yeah,
so what they said is, you're in your head outside your studio and you're out of your head in your studio. And I think that I've really tried to do that. And that's why, you read the documentation of what they want and you think about what you're going to do and you put your palette down. And once that's done, you get out of your head and
yeah.
you just work intuitively.
Yeah, so again, not having Wi-Fi in the studio, awesome. Um, and I got a great set of headphones and a great set of speakers. So my number one way of just diving in is definitely to put on music.
Hmm.
Um, and that gets me in the zone, I think, quicker than anything. So
Yeah.
it's kind of cool. One of the collectors, I sort of posted something, I think, about how it was actually this piece here that this one, I'll turn around. This one I painted listening entirely to the whole retrospective of the Tragically Hip. And it's called
Oh,
Morning Moon, one of the
oh, that's
Tragically
great.
Hips. And it was kind
Yeah.
of cool because the folks who were interested in it were like, we love the Tragically Hip. So it's
Oh,
kind of neat.
and that's the other thing I want to talk to you about because I love your names, your naming conventions for your pieces, and that's so
Ah,
hard to try and find names for art, right? And then after a while, you realize, oh, I'm kind of running out of
yeah,
good
oh yeah.
names.
There's only so
So,
many fall leaves, right? So, well, we talked earlier about what's on your bookshelf. So I don't have much of a bookshelf here, but I credit Tom Robbins and even Cowgirls Get the Blues and so many other of Tom Robbins' books. He's a bit of a poet and I've got it written down in here somewhere. I'll see if I can find it. Almost every line in some of his books, I just write down. He's so poetic. So yeah, my whole last series was entirely based on lines from Tom Robbins' books. I'll see if there's a good one here. The Ongoing Odyssey of Water. Um, Spring was turning the pages, right? Just poetic
yeah.
lines. So the latest book that I read that I thought, oh man, those are beautiful. I think it's called Where the Crawdads Sing.
Oh, yeah.
Oh man, just about every line that woman wrote could be a title for a painting. Just
Hmm.
unbelievable. So evocative of light and nature and forests and green. So yeah, I realized that I'm really good with paint. I'm not great with words. So I looked at song titles. I let the poets do that, and I credit them on the back of the painting for sure.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think for me too, I feel like my titles need to be, because I'm inspired by nature, I feel like there has to be some sort of a nature connection. But
Yeah.
yeah, like you're saying, there's only so many descriptive things you can, especially with abstract. I find that people need some sort of a way
Yeah.
to sort of start to navigate the painting. So to kind of call it something really esoteric doesn't help them to understand the work, right?
Yeah.
So, but then equally, I don't want to have like pink rose, purple flower, you know, but it's becoming like, so I kind of tend to go into like lavender morn, wisteria morn, you know, like it's kind of,
I mean,
I feel like I'm naming streets in a subdivision or something. Here's all the names.
you do kind of run into trouble. And I have this with some of my earlier work when someone might write you and say, I'm really interested in fall leaves. You know, it's the one that has the light coming through the branches. And I think, oh, can you
That's like 95 pieces.
send me a screen capture?
Yeah. Well, I did that too when I first started. I had a series called Summer Rain, which
Yeah.
I did a lot of them because I was really inspired by trying to capture that lightness, and that for me it was the warmth and the smell of the rain.
Yeah.
And then I had a woman come in. She's like, "So you're named my painting Summer Rain 4, but I can see there's a Summer Rain 4 that you did in like 2010 that was like looks like this." And I'm like, "Holy cow!" Like she's gone through my website, knows my work better than I do. So I'm like, "Oh, sorry, but that's the 2017 version of Summer Rain."
Yeah, absolutely. Summer Rain for part 2.
That's right. Hence, we should have, I guess, a better database system
Yeah.
of actually tracking our art names.
I'm other side of the brain thing we were talking about.
Yes, yeah. Well, I know it. And I always start a system because I know Art Archive is supposed to be a really good system for that. But of course, it only works if you're actually diligent about putting the art in it and updating it, which since I can't seem to do my own spreadsheet, I'm not sure I'd be more successful in that.
Yeah, I mean, my system right now, if we're divulging all, is that I usually take a picture of the front and then I take a snapshot of the back.
Yeah.
And I have a record of what it looks like and what it's called, and that's just pathetic,
Yeah.
right? I have to go
And
through
then the challenge becomes, and where is it?
Well, yeah.
You know, my sister just called me the other day because she's of course, in Vancouver, and I keep some of her paintings in Toronto, so we can kind of, get them into Toronto galleries and stuff like that. And she's like, "Yeah, I just sold this piece off my website." And she goes, "I don't know where it is." So she's like, "Do you have it in Toronto?" I'm like,
I haven't
so,
officially lost.
luckily I did. It was all good, but it was just hilarious,
I haven't officially lost one painting. There's one painting in my database. It's from about 7 years ago. I have no idea where it is. It's not a big painting, but there is a painting in my life that is somewhere in the world, and I have no idea.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I have those ones too.
Up at a gallery somewhere, or
Well, like I had that one of yours, the golden one that I picked up from because it fit in my car.
yes.
And then for some reason I had it in my house for about 6 months, and then felt I really was compelled to give it back. I don't think he even knew I had it.
Well, that's the thing, right? Being large, my car holds a maximum of a 48 by 36, and the golden one that you had was 6 feet by 5 feet.
Yeah.
So it kind of lived where it lived. If someone picked it up for me, they were stuck with it. I don't know if I told you that before you picked it up for me.
It's okay. I enjoyed it. It was lovely. I probably could have sold it a couple times, actually.
Well, the good news about that painting is that it really recently sold to a family in Port Severin. So it lives in Port Severin now.
Oh, lovely.
Just
Yeah.
love it. I tried to.
Yeah, that's one of the other practical things about being an artist, because my car was stolen, about a month ago. So I had to buy a new car, and it was all about like measuring the size of the door. Like, can I actually physically get the art in the car?
Yeah.
So all these car dealers thought I was a nut job. Because like, do you want to see the specs, the leather interior? I'm like, nope, I need to measure the size of the door.
Used to be able to hold 5 by 6 painting.
Yeah. So I now can do 48 by 72
Awesome.
in this car. Yeah.
I'll let the carpenter know.
Okay.
I have been known to, especially to Cabbagetown, the Cabbagetown Art Show, which is one of my favorites. And I live nearby. So driving over the Bloor Street Bridge, being that guy who's got my arm out the window, holding my paintings as they're sort of, billowing on the Bloor Street Bridge. I have been known to be that guy. I've got a vast collection
Yes.
of bungee cords.
I have that too because I did it was a 72 by 72 canvas, and same thing. And it was only a couple of miles south, so I'm like, okay, to rent a van and everything just seems like so much work and so expensive, right? So same thing. I had this, and it was like going really, really slowly. It's like 72 inches is a big piece.
Oh yeah, that can get a lot of wind. That's for sure.
Yes, yeah.
That could be a whole other podcast. Is just what nightmare stories have you
What
had?
not to do? Yeah, exactly.
Tornadoes, rain, lightning. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I have learned over the years that my paintings are resilient. They're very weather resilient. They are.
Yeah, my resined ones are, but it was interesting because I sort of discovered Art Walk in the Square a couple of years ago. We had like tornado warning and then torrential downpour. And that's when I realized that I had one that was not resined, which I don't resin everything, but it was actually vulnerable. So it got rain on it and the rain stained.
Oh,
So now I seal it. Yeah.
yeah. Oh
So
my God.
lesson learned. It was kind of a drag because it was quite a big one.
Oh man. Yeah. Oh yeah. I actually had planned to take a step back this summer anyways, to get out of the, I don't know, I don't want to call it a grind, but to get out of the cycle of shows. I was just feeling a little bit, I wanted to feel more inspired, less like I was constantly working for the next show.
Yeah.
So I had actually planned on taking a bit of a break. I had a trip to Newfoundland planned with the artist Lori Ryerson. I had all sorts of little retreats planned and little ways to be creative. So that's had to be kind of rejigged so that those creative places are here in the home and in the studio, not Newfoundland, not other places. And the thing that I haven't missed this year is being out in the elements. I'm sort of mentally noting when the shows would have been and thinking, oh, wow, it is raining. We would have been out in the middle of the park, I don't miss that. But the thing I'm really missing is all the artists. I'm missing all the people who aren't necessarily in my circle, but I see them several times a year.
Yeah, I know, me too. And I actually don't even, frankly, mind the elements. What I just hate is the schlepping. I'd love to hire somebody else to get my tent and my panels and my grids and everything from my car into the tent.
Yeah.
But I don't know, I find sometimes when you have those outdoor shows and it's a torrential downpour, and I mean, you've done this because we were at Riverdale and you had people trapped in your tent because it was so bad, and you sold work, right?
Yeah.
I've done the same thing. So it's like, there's a selling opportunity everywhere.
So again, back to it not being glamorous, right? I remember one of the years people being in the tent for just being stuck for like 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And by the time they left, they had fallen in love with a painting. Yeah. And I had to run up to the front and get a clear plastic shower curtain, I think, or something like that. You guys were giving out plastic shower curtains to protect the painting. So I wrapped it all up in a shower curtain and they went off very happy.
That's perfect.
I know.
Well, I think unfortunately we're almost at our time because I need to be able to keep it under a certain time. Otherwise we can't
all right.
post it. So It's been fabulous to see you. And well, I guess I'll see you probably later today because I'm actually heading to the studio.
Okay. Thank you so much, Kate.
All right. Thanks so much. All right. Bye. Have a great day. So that was wonderful. Thank you so much. That's always, of course, I could talk to Lisa forever, but thank you so much for joining us. And if you have any questions or anything or other things you want to know about or other artists you might want to hear about, then certainly let me know. That would be super fun. And just to let you know, coming up next week for my 12th week, so that'd be 3 months, is Kat Stambolic. So she does really interesting 3D art. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how she does that. And then we've got Corinne Kokolakis, who does a lot of, she comes to her art from a more academic point of view, which is going to be really interesting, I think, to talk about as well. And then Sherry Hart. So that's kind of our upcoming sessions. This one will be also posted on Facebook, so you can be able to see it. And I'm also in the process of actually putting everything onto my YouTube channel and then separating the audio. So if you want to listen to it as a podcast instead of a video, that would be cool too. So thank you so much. Hope to see you next week at 11 o'clock and have a fabulous day.